Hello, welcome to the EFL League 2 2021-22 predictions from the Untitled Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and next to me is Mr. Daniel Cody. There is no try best season, but you still got us two. But we're still going to do predictions in the Championship weekly, but we're going to do the League 2 one just for the whole season, and we're going to do League 1 and the Championship, but there will be videos coming out soon. But we are going to start with League 2. It was a very good season last season, and it's very hard to predict from what we gave last season. And this season's probably going to get a bit harder. So I'm going to start with you, Daniel. I'm going to go reverse order. Normally I'll say who do you think is going to win it, but I'm going to start with relegation. So who do you think is going to go down?
Well, it's a good job you've started with the bottom because I've got a lot less teams in this contention. I think it's fair to say League 2 is probably the most open it's been for a few years as a whole. I don't think there's as much separating the top and the bottom as previous years. I've got in my down contenders. So basically, when I started this, I did an up contenders, down contenders, and then finalised at the end. So I've got 8 teams in total that I think might have a struggling season. So I've picked, firstly, in my down contenders, Barrow. Although they've signed pretty well, and I think it will keep them up, I think they're going to be down in that sort of bottom third again.
Well, they got a new manager in Mark Creeper now, very experienced.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be a saving grace for them, and he has recruited quite well so far, but they're not going to be flying up the table anytime soon. I know I'm going to get a few pelters for the next one because I do it every year, but Crawley Town, they're gradually getting weaker each season, only slightly, but one year they're just going to have a bad year. But again, I think they'll be fine this season, but they'll be one of the bottom third as well. Hartlepool are one I'm worried about because they lost Rhys Oates in the summer, who you only have to look at last year's playoffs to see just how good and important he was for them. He's so influential moving forward. They had the worst record defensively in the top 5 of the National League last year and relied a lot on their attacking prowess, and losing one of the key players from that, plus having a fairly quiet window so far, has left me with a few worries. Rochdale's my 4th one, miles off the pitch. They've had a really bad pre-season. They only made their first signing yesterday and they need to get additions in quick. They've lost loads of players. There's chaos off the pitch. I'm worried about them. Scunthorpe, every time there's huge turnover every summer and you can't keep surviving that way. Stevenage, I know you'll probably have them in your mix for relegation because you always do, but I think they've signed well enough to be safe, but I still think they'll be down there. Sutton, I'm a little worried about because, again, not the strongest summer. They've got an experienced squad, but it's not the biggest squad in the world. And they've got to get used to having a home grass pitch, which obviously you've got to consider with a team coming up from 4G. And Swindon are my last one because they've been in chaos most of the summer. But thankfully, they have got a new chairman in. They have signed 4 players recently. They've got Ben Garner in as their head coach, and they seem to be signing well. So I think Swindon will be all right, but it's going to be a slow start. The 2 I've gone for all of that, Craig, in bottom place, I've gone for Rochdale. And this isn't because of the players they've got. I just think off the pitch, something's going to give this season. They were always a slightly smaller fish in League 1, reputation-wise and club size-wise. And with the financial problems, with the effects of the pandemic moving forward, I just think they might have a bit too much catching up to do after a slow start to pre-season. And in the second place, 23rd, I had to choose between the relegation contenders. The promotion teams from last year's National League. Sutton United, I think, would just about do enough because of their experience. Hartlepool, because they were so weak defensively at times, and because of the loss of a key centre forward and a few other experienced players too, I've gone for Hartlepool in 23rd. But I hope I'm wrong because I love the North East clubs and I want them all to stay up.
2 tough choices. I think I was on the same wavelength as you, to be honest, on picking the bottom 2, and I completely, utterly forgot Swindon's shenanigans in the start of the summer because I didn't know they were going to field a team come the first weekend of August. But luckily, it turned around. They got the new owner in place, and hopefully they can sort their stuff out before then. But I haven't gone for the Swindon to go down either. Pretty much, you said the 2 teams that are actually in my bottom 2. For me, for 24th, I actually have gone for Sutton, and I don't want Sutton to be there. No. I really don't. I want the 2 promoted teams to stay up there, like Harrogate and Barrow did last season. I just feel like I don't feel like the 4G excuse. I don't want that as an excuse because Harrogate had the same problem last season, and they were fine. The other team I have gone for is Skunk United. They've just been there the last 2 to 3 seasons, not really gone for it. They've just, as you said, they've gone that downward spiral, and I don't see anything like any progression. Keep chopping, changing managers, and it's just been a relatively poor last couple of years for them. And I think they're going to actually fall into the trap, like Grimsby did last season, fall into that trap and actually go down. Colchester, I think they're very lucky to even pick them, to be honest, because they've been terrible last season.
That's going to be interesting later on.
Oh no, you haven't. But I don't see anything special from Colchester anyway. I think they'll just survive. Hartlepool, I think they'll just about survive. Barrow, I think they've got a more experienced manager. They'll be fine. Harrogate, I think they'll be fine. They've got their own way of doing it. But let's move on to the playoffs. I think I can guess one of the teams that could potentially be in the playoffs, and that's Colchester United. Where have you put them?
I've put them in 7th as my dark horse for the season. The reason is because quite often for clubs in that region of the country, they're signing players from more local teams or teams in the same region. So Colchester have signed 4 players from Ipswich, but the players that have come out of Ipswich this year as the experienced ones are a very high quality bunch. So we've got Freddie Sears, Alan Judge, Cole Scouse and Luke Chambers. Now, that is potentially, it's not a long-term solution because 2 of them are 35 and they're all in the 30s. But for a 1-year period, if they avoid injuries and if they've got good young players around them, it could be a bit of genius. They've also got Frank Newble in as a centre-forward from Plymouth, who's going to be a proper target man for them. They can play a bit more directly. And Hayden Mullins did a really good job towards the end of last season when we all thought they were going to be potentially doomed. And he kept them up pretty comfortably in the end. So I've just gone for them as a surprise of the season, potentially. Now, I can look stupid because it has happened before. But I just think Colchester might be a big surprise. I'll very quickly run through the 4 teams that I've got narrowly missing out, which I've gone back on one of our manager specials this summer already, which was Bradford, because they've done next to nothing in the window. They've done next to nothing.
I've done the same thing.
And I mean, they could well change it in August. That's the beauty of these pre-season predictions. There's 4 weeks for it to all turn around again. But for now, I can't back them based on what they've done. The other ones I'm a little worried about. I did think about putting Harrogate as a playoff contender because they've signed really well as well. Like to Patterson from Wickham, Sharon from Fleetwood, Page from Exeter. But again, not quite strong enough as a squad over the season. And then my other ones just missing out who have pretty traditionally been up there. Newport County. I've not quite gone for them to make the top 7. I put Oldham in the mix because of Keith Coe and Alan Sheehan, but the squad, it's not quite good enough for me. And I've gone for Northampton to miss out as well, despite relegation, just because a lot of the players coming down from Scotland, they've lost a lot of experience, but they'll just miss out for me, 8th or 9th place. The other teams I've got in my playoff, though, Craig, Colchester in 7th, Tranmere Rovers in 6th. I think it's going to be a slower start to the season for them because they've lost basically their whole defence and had to rebuild. We know Manny Monte's a bit of a legend there. The likes of Sid Nelson, Ridelhort and Ray have all gone as well. So Mickey Mellon's going to have a tougher rebuilding job this time. And it really hinges on whether they can keep the likes of Callum McManaman fit for the season because we know how good he can be, but we also know how much football he can miss. So they're going to be the sorts of things that matter. I've gone for Forest Green in 5th just because there's not been much change around there. And they've always traditionally been up there. They've got a good squad for League 2. They were in the playoffs last year. I think they'll be there again. And in 4th place, I'm finally backing them to be fairly patient with a manager. Salford are my 4th place team because if they leave Gary Bowyer for the season, just like if they'd left Graham Alexander at the start of last season, they would have been a top 7 team. So I'm going for that. Salford are in my playoffs begrudgingly.
I can tell you, I at least got 2 out of the 4.
Well, Colchester's not one of them.
Colchester is definitely not one of them. No, I think my picks for the playoffs have been pretty much the same picks the last 2 ever since we started this show the last 3-4 years. They've pretty much been the same teams, and I expect a lot better from them than they obviously have. Well, actually, I think I only one team right now. It was Tranmere a couple of seasons ago, so I expect a lot more from them. 7th place, I have gone for Mansfield as my dark horse. I think like a very experienced coach in Nigel Clough got rid of a lot of players in the summer. He's brought some players in. I think he obviously gets his own squad in now. I think that can work out pretty well. 6th, I've gone for Forest Green. I totally agree with what you just said there. They're just always there. They always get ranked to playoffs. They played Tranmere a couple of seasons ago. They played Newport last season in a crazy second leg. And I think they'll obviously be there again. Fifth, I've gone for Carlisle. I think COVID got in the way for them. They had to play catch up too many times last season and they fell away. And fourth place, I have also gone for Salford. Exactly the same reason what you said. Keep the manager for at least more than 6 games and see how it right. Obviously, they kept him for a reason because he must have impressed them. Not obviously on the pitch, because they didn't get to the playoffs last season, but in and around the club, he must have done something for him to keep the job. So that is my top 4 to 7. But who have you got to win the playoffs?
To win the playoffs is a very interesting one, because if I've based this correctly, Salford will be playing Colchester or another dark horse or another one that sneaks in like a Northampton, and Forest Green will be playing Tranmere. So Salford make the final for me. I think the other one could be very tight, but I'm going for, again, I don't want to, I'm going for Salford to nick it in a final. I don't know which one of the two they'll play because it's going to be so tight, but Salford for me, if on the proviso they keep Gary Bowyer for the season, will be the winners of the playoffs.
Yeah, so my playoffs is Salford versus Mansfield and Carlisle versus Forest Green. So Salford will beat Mansfield, and I think Forest Green will actually beat Carlisle. But I have to go the same way as you. I think Salford will win it. They just got to stick to it. If we have to do a manager special come October on Gary Bowyer being sacked, they're definitely not going to. But we think Salford is the first team promoted out of League Two by the playoffs. So let's get on to the top 3 from League Two, starting off with third place.
Third place is the same team that you had as the dark horse for the playoffs, and a team that we always put in the top 7 and never ever make
Mansfield.
it. Because Nigel Clough is a man I have a huge amount of faith in. He got through last season solidly, and he has conducted a big overhaul of that squad. They will be slightly slower starters, but if anyone can be trusted to get them back up there, it will be him. And I mean, even the players they've brought in are good players. Reece Oates, I talked about as a reason that I think Hartlepool might go down. I think he'll be the same influence for Mansfield going up. Stephen Quinn, a really experienced centre midfielder, a good young fullback in Ryan Burke at left back, an area they weren't particularly strong last year and where they have lost a key player too. I just think that if there's going to be a year for Mansfield and the clubs that we always predict to be up there, surely it's the year where League Two is this open. Surely. Yeah,
well, obviously I put Mansfield as my dark horse. You actually got one better. For me, you thought they were going to miss out this season, and I think they've learned from the mistakes from the last couple of seasons. I hope Michael Flynn has learned from the mistakes. If he has another good season, I hope he doesn't get a move up another league. Well, he deserves it. He does deserve it, to be honest, and move up. But I hope he does it with this Newport side. I think they're going to finish in third place. I think they'll learn their lesson. The unfortunate penalty in the final wasn't really a penalty, in my opinion. But end of the day, the goal scorer is now a Hatter, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I think Newport will go up in third place. Second place.
My runners-up, and this is one where I've gone the opposite way to what I did with Bradford in the pre-season manager special, because the signings have impressed me. It feels like the right man, the right club, the right time. I'm going for Leyton Orient and Kenny Jackett. I'm going for second place, a big call, and this could make me look like an absolute idiot. But the biggest thing for them, they've improved defensively. They've added Darren Pratley in the middle, which, whether it's all on the pitch, his influence, he's going to be a big figure in the dressing room, a bit like Joby McAnuff was previously. And then that little bit of quality and finesse in terms of Paul Smith up front. I just feel like it's becoming a well-balanced squad, and they'll probably add 1 or 2 more loan players towards the end of the window. And given how open the league is again, if ever there's a year, I can see it being Leyton Orient's time. And Kenny Jackett, great appointment, as we said before.
Yeah, I think it's a great appointment with Kenny Jackett, and unfortunately, they are not in my top 7, but they were 8. I think I might predict them to be at just around the playoffs or something like that. I did, so I think they'll be 8. I think they'll miss out. I looked and went, oh yeah, Kenny Jackett's there. I forgot about that. But I think they'll just about miss out. My pick for second place is the team you picked in 6th place, and that is I always want to back Tranmere to do well this season, and that is yes, Tranmere Rovers. Mickey Mellon effect. I'm so happy he's back at the club. They made some really good signings. You said Callum McMahon really struck me by surprise. I am backing him because he knows how to get the best out of a Tranmere team. Yeah, he's had to make changes, but like you look at Nathan Jones, for example, he's had to make changes to his own squads for them to improve. And I feel Mickey Moon's on that same wavelength. I think they're not going to win the title, but I think they'll be very happy in second place. But Daniel Cody, who is going to win League Two this season?
Now, based on the teams that are left to predict from, I'd be surprised if we haven't got the same team. However, there is obviously some recent drama that may change this, which I'm not going to go into any detail for both legal reasons and whatever else. But the strongest squad in the league by a million miles with the signings this summer is Bristol Rovers. However, by the time this episode comes out or by the time the season starts, they may or may not have their current manager for reasons that shouldn't be discussed in a football show. So that's my concern. But I've basically put in my comments here, most good managers should get this squad into the top 7 or 3 once gelled. So a quiet first 10 games, but a bit like Bolton last year, I can see them flying through the league later in the season. As long as they've got a good manager in charge, Bristol Rovers for me to win the league, because on paper, they're the strongest by a million miles. And I'm guessing you haven't got the same based on your face.
No.
Wow.
Do you know what? I didn't pick Bristol Rovers. I think there's too much expectancy in Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I can see him flopping at it. And like, Joey Barton's got his own problems off the field. That does not help whatsoever. Bristol Rovers do not make my top 7. And the team that you didn't pick at all will be my winner of League Two. And that is Exeter City. It's a random shout. I think they've got to do it at some point. They've always been in and around the playoffs or just missed out the playoffs. But I feel like I hope they have enough this season to get over the line. They signed Sam Nombe from Milton Keynes. It was on loan at Luton last season. I don't believe he's a championship player, but he could do very well in League Two. So I think Exeter will win League Two to your Bristol Rovers. But that's our predictions. But do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there. And give us your predictions on who is going to win League Two, who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to get relegated to the National League. While you're down there, give this video a like, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.